The best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. No one can stop me. I'm the best ever.
Maybach music.
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Let's get ready to
All step for man. One giant leap for mankind.
Welcome to the Walden Podcast. My name is Marcus Kehoe. Some of you may know me as Totally Upland. On the podcast, we talk about entrepreneurship, the great outdoors, and most importantly, living a life of intention. Today, I've got Jordan Friedman on, intelligence agent, hopeful, and outdoorsman. Jordan, great to meet you.
Great to meet you, Marcus. Thanks for having me on. I don't know if I would go quite as far as saying intelligence agent hopeful. I do contract for the federal government, but not in an intelligence capacity. I live in Scottsdale, Arizona, where we have world-class quail hunting. I know we'll see some of those Northwood folks down here in the winter when it's, only in the 50s or 60s. And I have a short hair named Lincoln, who's my pride and joy and kind of do everything for. And while I love all types of hunting, I love upland hunting with a burning passion. And, there's just something about being behind a dog that sends me over the edge every time.
Yeah, let's go. So let's backtrack here for a second. You said you're a contractor for the federal government and you're doing computer stuff. You're a cybersecurity guy. Is that right?
Yeah. So I'm a contractor for a private company that works for CISA, which for folks who don't know, that's the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. It's probably one of the newest agencies within the federal government. It was stood up in 2018. But, in my opinion, it's doing some of the most important work for the government. I think what's really cool about CISA is, a lot of the work that we're doing is really nonpartisan. And in, such a divided time in this country, regardless of where you stand, I think cybersecurity is one of the, and critical infrastructure security is one of those issues where it's hard to take a partisan line because it's just not partisan. And
Why?
so I think it's just a matter of fact, right? It's not something like immigration where there are two sides to the story, or,
Sure.
Military engagement overseas, right? Where you have, with cyber, it's because it's all based on code, right? And computers, for just to make it simple, right? Like it's not something where there's two sides to the story, right? It's a matter of fact. When you're dealing with a situation, it's either right or wrong. And I think that's super nice because, I think just looking at the past, decade or so, everything has become polarized, right? And to be able to work with people who have a common mission, right? Protecting the American people, and are able to do it in a way where there's infighting over the best way to do something, right?
Sure.
But it's not a fight to the death over ideals,
I'm with you. So code is math, more or less. I mean, when you plug it into the computer, it either works or it doesn't work. And so, and your typical, probably your listeners and your typical non-technical, it is bipartisan for them because it means nothing to them. I guess the big question is, what are CISA's initiatives when it comes to protecting the American people through cybersecurity? Like, maybe I'm not fully grasping what CISA does for us.
Yeah. So I think, and I don't want to misquote anything. I am just a contractor after all, but, I think CISA's ultimate goal is to make sure that there is, at least for the public, a general awareness of what cybersecurity is, right? I think with the technology revolution that has just completely sped up tenfold in the past 5 years, a lot of people are super vulnerable to basic things like identity theft, and phishing and all that stuff. It's not phishing with an F, it's PH phishing.
Right.
And social engineering.
For the listeners, phishing is pulling up a fake website that looks like the website that you're trying to visit, so it can get your username and password. They also do it via email. Always check the email sender, and sometimes you can find out that it's a fake. It's a totally fake email.
They're doing it by phone now too. They're with AI. They're recording your voice, and then they'll call someone who's close to you and say, I'm desperately in need of some money. Can you send me money here? And obviously, when they ask you to wire money, it's like if you were ever a kid and you were trying to sell something on eBay and a Nigerian prince wanted to buy it. You know not to send it, right?
Right. Well, I wired the guy $500, and I'm still waiting for the
right
that he's supposed to be mailing me.
Exactly. But yeah, I think one of their top priorities is really just making people aware. There's a bunch of initiatives going on to inform the public just on best cybersecurity practices. I think most people use one or two passwords for everything they do. I'm in that boat too, right? I'm just as guilty as the next person. But with the introduction of AI, it's becoming increasingly easier for people to access all of our information. And, we live in a digital world, right? We're all out there. We're all on social media. It's easy to manipulate. So I think that's one of the big pieces. I think behind the scenes, CISA does a lot of stuff. Like personally, I work on supply chain stuff, cyber supply. You can think of it just like supply chain risk management, except it's on the cyber side. So, if a hack occurs in X country, tracing that software back to a chip manufacturer, where that chip manufacturer sourced all the pieces of their hardware to make that chip, where those producers are getting their minerals, ores, all stuff like that. Wow. And so it's super interesting.
Yeah. That let's talk more about that. So we're not just talking about when I heard cyber supply chain, I'm thinking the different bits and pieces of the technology itself, like software, like where are we getting, who's our email provider, who's doing the domain hosting, and so on and so forth. I'm not thinking all the way back to where is the chip in my computer coming from.
Yeah, it really does go that far, because at the end of the day, let's just say company A, which has a great reputation, right? They're compromised because their software was using code written by someone in X country. And this is a widely known example. I think it happened with JavaScript, or a Java language, back in 2015 in Turkey. It was a huge exploit because it was common code written by someone, and a huge software provider was using that section of code for their software. And so when it was traced back to this developer, it was kind of like, well, the whole supply chain, right, from top to bottom, has now been disrupted, and the service is interrupted for users. And obviously the end goal of cybersecurity is keeping the end user safe, right? Yeah. But cyber's super interesting. It's obviously
so true or false,
rapidly expanding. Go ahead.
False. Apache Spark 2.0 is used by intelligence agencies to manipulate user data and recruit.
I can't. Honest to God,
you're not at liberty to say that. You don't have the.
Honest to God, I don't know what Apache Spark 2.0 is.
It's the licensing framework.
Yeah, but honestly, I don't. And that's you're talking 3-letter agencies at that point. Real spooks and everything. I don't interact with those people at all.
As far as you know.
Yeah, as far as I know,
very good at their job. If you did know, really,
I think like if you're into stuff like that, we're probably all being contacted by the CIA, FBI. We just don't know it, right?
Right.
We're just if you start thinking about like 1984 Big Brother type stuff, it's kind of everywhere. And I think just in terms of talking like technology,
so, as a cybersecurity expert, I'm curious to know. I mean, do you think Big Brother's happening really with these computers, or how much privacy do we really have?
So personally, I think Big Brother is a bit of a loaded term, even though I just used it. Sure. I think 15, 20 years ago, yeah, maybe. But I think when we reached the point of the iPhone, I think the iPhone was a turning point, right? And the introduction of other similar like Android smartphones, because it put technology quite literally in your fingertips, right? And so, before that, you had computers and whatnot, and you were putting your information out there. MySpace, I wasn't even around for MySpace, but stuff like that.
I had a MySpace.
With the introduction of the iPhone and apps that followed, Snapchat, Instagram, it made it easier for people who do want to collect information on others to do that, and it made it super, super easy. I mean, to get back to the question, I mean, and I don't want to get political on this, but there's people who say, oh, I don't care if the government's spying on me as long as we're safe, right? And then you have people on the other side who are like, it's a violation of my civil liberties. And I think it falls somewhere in between, right? At what point are you willing to give up so much of your personal information and share so much of your personal life that you don't really have a stake in the argument because you're just voluntarily putting it out there?
Right. But I want to catch bad guys as much as the next person, but also I don't want to have all my text messages read.
Yeah. No, and I think that's also, a bit of a misconception. And I think I don't know if you've seen the Snowden movie.
I have.
But if you've seen it's a good movie. They did a good job with it. But, I think the Snowden scandal really stirred things up. And, if you watch the movie, it really does seem like they're reading our text messages. At the end of the day, they're not, unless they have a legitimate reason to, like if you're on a watch list.
What's reading it then? Is it a chat bot that's reading all of our texts? Probably that's already it.
Yeah, it's supercomputers at this point. It's just collecting it. I mean, there was this was a grad school paper I wrote, but I want to say about 10 years ago, there was a FISA warrant issue with Verizon. And don't quote me on this. Grad school was a while ago, but your cell provider is selling your metadata, right? And while your metadata may not say like, I was texting Marcus this at 11:30 in the morning, right? Like it can give clues.
Sure.
But I don't.
And we're giving up so much data to so many different potential outlets that A plus B plus C, you can get to D, E, F, G all the way to Z. Really, that's what it is. It's bits and pieces everywhere that helps them draw the total conclusion.
Everyone at this point in day and age, unless you truly are a recluse, has a digital footprint, and it makes it easy to manipulate us. And I know very few people who aren't active on any type of social media, and even those people, like if you have a credit card, right? Your information's out there. If you when you buy something online, like let's just say, to put it in hunting context, right? Like I go to Sitka's website and buy a pair of pants. They then go sell my data to like outdoor companies, and you start getting spam calls. And it's the same thing with politics, right? So if you shop at Cabela's, right? You go buy, let's say you buy a fishing rod, right? They're not going to know that you bought a fishing rod, but Cabela's is allowing these super PACs and whatever to buy your information and then send you text. It's like, if you get a text, it's like, you've never signed up for a political campaign or anything in your life, but you start getting these texts. You're like, how the hell did they get my number?
Yeah. The last number I had was owned by a super hot real estate agent. And so she had every man that she had ever encountered texting her. And then she was signed up for every spam possibility under the sun. And I got the number. And so I had to be the bearer of bad news. It's like, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm a dude. And they're like, oh, Joanne? I'm like, no, Joanne doesn't have this number anymore. Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, of course. What are you going to do? So your data is out there. That's just the reality. With that, what is CISA doing to combat and keep us safe while our data is everywhere?
Yeah, I mean, I think one big thing right now, and it has to relate to, China is, and not just China, but it's all malicious state actors and even non-state actors is these big data breaches and hacks, right? I think one of CISA's, big points is we work in close unison with the private sector, right? So companies like Intel, right? I'm not saying we work with Intel, but I'm saying,
right,
tech companies like that to, help them with their policies on cybersecurity. And I think, again, this is one of those interesting situations where the partnership between private and public sector is kind of nonpartisan, right? It's like, you should really do this because we're looking at this example from an attack on this country. And when I say attack, I'm not talking physical, I'm talking cyber.
Cyber attack.
You look at this, you have to do this. Otherwise you're vulnerable. Right.
Yeah.
So that's one of the big things. And again, to get back to it, I think it's just really pushing the message of, best cyber practices. You can go on their website right now, www.cisa.gov, I believe, and you'll find mountains of resources on best cybersecurity practices. Yeah.
And probably we need to do that. Maybe we really should use Apple's suggestion on strong password, and maybe we should do that every time.
Yeah.
However, it needs to work every time. If I trust Apple to suggest a strong password, I better be able to log into the thing I just created an account for every time.
Yeah.
Without any issue. That's where I'm
absolutely
at. Consumer.
Yeah.
Now, here's what I'm curious about. So you're working as a contractor for a government agency that focuses on cybersecurity, and yet you say you're not sure if you're trying out to be an intelligence agent. Sounds like tryouts for an intelligence agent.
No, I mean, I think the really cool thing about contracting is, and I tell people I'm either a contractor or a consultant. What I think is really cool about consulting is it's kind of a universal skill, right? It's a lot of project management. And so, I have friends who have done this, they've been on, intelligence or homeland security contracts. And then at their next job, they're working on like a health and human services contract, right? And it's completely different.
That's what the coverage is.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the transferable skill is project management. And I think that translates over to business, right? If you can manage a contract in one spot, you can do it anywhere. And that's what I really like about it is it's pretty unique in that, you get to work with the government, you get to support the government, but it's a business at the end of the day.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, back to your point, I like consulting because, right now I could be doing cyber, but who knows, 5 years from now, I could be working in renewable energy, doing project management there.
Sure. So,
which is a great cover, right?
Which is probably a cover. It's still
right.
Some secret agent. That's right. I mean, it's got to be. I'm curious about Intel. Like, what do you know? You're working hand in hand with Intel. What are they up to, really? For a while, they were putting chips in MacBooks, and I think that was recruiting from intelligence agents.
No, I mean, honestly, I don't work in intelligence, and I don't work with them. I did study intelligence in grad school.
And you're saying you're not trying out to be a secret agent, Jordan? You studied it, and now you're working very close.
Dude, I'm colorblind. I can't be a secret agent. I don't pass the vision.
They don't
yeah, I don't.
That.
No. It's a medical requirement. I don't pass the vision test. Yeah. I also have.
So here you are. I mean, what happens if you end up being the best cybersecurity guy? They know they won't let you in.
I'll just make a boatload of money because I'll go start my own company or something.
There you go. That's the right mentality about it. But why be a secret agent when you could just be CEO and make $1 million?
Exactly.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, no, but I mean, having lived on the East Coast in the DC area, I mean, the intelligence community is it's super interesting to study. I'm just wrapping up a book that I was reading. It's called, and I would recommend this to anyone. It's called The Devil's Chessboard. It's about Alan Dulles. I don't think a lot of people know who Alan Dulles is, but he was kind of the grandfather of the CIA. And not to get into conspiracies.
What we're talking about here is that you're trying out to be a student.
No.
In your book, you studied post-grad.
No, it's really not. It's not about it. It's more so about the politics behind it. That's what's so fascinating about the book is, you hear people talk about the deep state and everything, but Alan Dulles was literally the deep state. He, for what it's worth, almost single-handedly prevented Jews from coming to the United States during Holocaust.
Wow.
Because him and his brother who owned a law firm that had business interests with the Nazis. During the war, he helped Nazi war criminals escape, and then he helped them establish what would become, the modern-day German intelligence apparatus. You talk about a lot of the assassinations that occurred in the 50s. Those are all Alan Dulles.
Wow.
If you're a fan of conspiracy theories,
I have some.
I would recommend reading this because I think if you, have looked into the JFK assassination, which has been, popped back up in the news as of late, it's pretty interesting. Alan Dulles really, really did not like Kennedy. So
you're saying he's behind it. He's pulling some strings in that. He at least had a hand.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think so. I mean, that's just my own personal opinion. I've read a lot. There's another great book called Bloody Treason, and it's exclusively on the assassination. It's like a 1,200-page book, and it almost reads like a novel, but it breaks it down in depth. And I think the cool thing about conspiracies is they're conspiracies, right? I do believe there's aliens out there. Right. And I think at the end of the day, the government is kind of desensitizing us to them, right? Yeah. And kind of nudging it off. And then, when they do have to tell us, we'll all be so aloof and kind of, not really care that it won't matter, right?
I'm pretty sure they just said recently that they got biologics in a spaceship covered in New Mexico, and we've been calling everyone in New Mexico crazy people, and Area 51 is a sham. It's like, no, turns out all of that is true.
Yeah. Absolutely. And no one cares.
Where do you go from there? If you're a conspiracy theorist, where do you go from there?
No, it's the same thing. I think ultimately they will release, every president since Kennedy, I think since the 90s, since Clinton, because that's when the congressional legislation was passed. I think they've all promised to declassify all of the JFK files, and they always declassify a few, but it's never anything like relevant or important, because the relevant and important stuff would be damaging.
Right. It is classified. But you probably have clearance for that, though, as a contractor.
I don't. I actually don't.
Trying out to be an intelligence.
That'd be cool, man. I would love to read through those documents. That would be
sure,
really, really cool. But
I think that's would be the number one reason why you would accept joining the CIA would be to get clearance, so you could know.
No, you know what? I would never join, and it'll segue kind of into, I think the theme behind your podcast is you sacrifice your life in a way.
Yeah,
and that's not something I'm willing to do.
So let's talk about the life sacrifice. I'm an internet personality. Before that, I worked in technology, much like you, some of which had to do with the government, and I was a government contractor, much like you. And I'm not getting off a computer. It's not happening. I'm always going to work on the computer is the reality. And I recently did the math on this. I'm certain, I'm 30 years old right now. I'm certain I've spent more than 15 years looking at a screen. I've spent more than half of the time as screen time.
Yeah.
It's not great for your brain. You've got to unplug somehow. Getting outdoors, getting out of nature. That's how I do it. Maybe you can relate to that.
I mean, absolutely. I'm in the same boat. I'm 25, and I wager that I've spent at least half my life on a screen, right? I think I was really one of the first, I think I'm Gen Z, I don't know, but I was one of the first years within Gen Z to really be exposed to technology as we know it now, right? I think the first iPhone came out in 07 or 08, and I was almost 10 at that point. So it's like I was kind of experiencing it. And so yeah, I think
Did you have an iPhone at 10?
No. I my parents and family did, and so, but I'm saying, I knew what it was, and I was, growing up in this era. Yeah, I've spent at least more than half my life on technology, and I think, so I work remotely, right? I love working remotely. It's great. I get my work done, but part of the reason I do that is because, here in Arizona, I mean, we have, similar to you, you're from Montana. I mean, it's just millions and millions of acres of public land where you can go do what you want, right? And for me, that's hunting, specifically behind a bird dog. And I think just, when you take a job, you take a role like someone does when they go into the CIA, you lose that freedom. You have to be in a specific location. And
Allegedly, I don't buy that they're all in Langley in one building. I assert that it's better for them to lie about that and tell you have to go to Langley, Virginia. And reality is they're all strewn about throughout America, working as remote employees for CISA.
Yeah,
you're already in the that's the reality.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are cases like that, but I think, at the end of the day, the vast majority of the folks who do work for the CIA are in Langley.
Yeah.
And you give up so much of your freedom, not just in terms of like what you want to be able to do, but at least for me, like one of my big principles and beliefs is just being honest and being truthful. And when you're forced to lie about who you are and what you do and everything, like that's not a life that is fulfilling.
So what would you do if once this hits YouTube and your cover is blown and you get terminated? Would you finally come to you like, maybe I am in the CIA, maybe I have been in the CIA the whole time?
I would probably just take out a loan, go buy a piece of property in Montana, and never come back.
That's how you end up in Montana, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
For the CIA for a little bit, and then you're like,
right
here, I'm moving to
Montana. And then they boot you off the list.
Exactly. Yeah. You get excommunicado.
Exactly. Yeah.
Fun. I know I'm poking fun here on the
no, totally. I'm all for
stuff. However, it sounds like you've given some thought to intelligence. You've done some studying. You're reading books about it.
Yeah, I mean, when I was in school, like, I definitely wanted to work for not necessarily a 3-letter agency, but within the intelligence community. And I think that really changed once I got to grad school. I was in grad school, during COVID and everything. And COVID just really made me appreciate everything about the outdoors. And, at least when you start off in the intelligence community, like you're working long hours, way more than like you're working Wall Street type hours.
Right.
And
a lot of them dress up in a monkey suit like the Wall Streeters too.
They do. But, that's just not something I was interested in. And I think like a happy medium is contracting, right? Like, if you're working for a private company, the pay is a lot better than the government. You get great benefits, and a lot of the work is remote now. Like that's how I'm able to be out west. And to me, it's perfect, right? Because I can still, support the overall national security mission and use, my knowledge and expertise towards something that I'm passionate about. And at the same time, like I have the freedom to. So I wake up at 5 a.m. for work every day because I work East Coast hours. When hunting season rolls around, Friday at 1 o'clock, right? Like I'm heading out.
5,000. I'm going out in the desert.
Yeah. And that's what I love, and that's why ultimately I decided like I wasn't going to do intelligence.
Let's go. So I mean, tell me about these Montezuma, the Merns. Are you chasing them? Have you found them?
Haven't chased them yet. It really depends on the monsoons this year. It looks like we've been getting a little more rain down south, which is good. I mean, it's kind of like, with anything, the hatch is all based on the rain. I was reading a report, I think Quail Forever put it out a few weeks ago, that, initial surveys suggest that most adult birds survived last season. So, they should be able to produce a good hatch if it rains, and, so.
Is most county the sweet spot for the Zumas, or where?
I mean, honestly, the closer to the border you can get, the better. I don't think, and that spans multiple counties. Elevation near the border, like, you're probably going to have a decent shot at Merns, and what's cool is down there, you typically run into all three species: Gamble's, Merns, and Scaled. And so, yeah, I mean, we'll see. I really hope I hope the, southern part of Arizona just gets hammered with rain over the next couple months, because I think it would make this season really, really exciting.
So speaking about the southern border of Arizona, would you consider being an undercover border patrol agent?
So actually, right out of school, I got an offer to go work for CBP.
Some of those guys get tatted. They get face tattoos. They get all the things.
Yeah. Again, I get disqualified because I'm colorblind. I mean, it's a super cool job.
You can't go on.
You can't be a building. You can't be law enforcement if you're colorblind. As far as
they tell you, don't press the red button, then you'll press the red button. Are you red green? Is that the problem?
I'm red green. Yeah, I'm red green. When I was 5, I wanted to be a fighter pilot. Quickly figured out I wasn't going to be a fighter pilot.
Bummer.
And I'm not great at math either.
So it's your mom's fault, but it only it's the men, right? Women carry.
No, it's the fathers carry the gene, I think.
I see. So your dad's colorblind.
Yeah, and my brother's colorblind as well.
I see.
Yeah.
So if your mom carries the recessive trait, then you end up being colorblind. So your mom can maybe bail you out of being colorblind. Is that the deal?
I think that's how it works. Yeah, because I know if the father has it, it's likely
you're going to get it.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, it's cool. Like I've trained, Lincoln down by the border. There's a great kennel down there for folks in Arizona. Guy Malakon, who runs Malakon Kennels. Especially, if you need snake breaking, great guy to do it with.
Go.
But where we're training in the national forest down there, I mean, you're looking at the border wall. It's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Being that close, and like you're literally looking into Mexico, and it's gorgeous down there. The sunrises are unbelievable, and yeah.
So, do you feel safe?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we were training a few weeks ago, I asked him, I was like, so when you're out hunting, are you worried about running into anyone? He's like, honestly, we used to be, but it's gotten a lot better. The border patrol station is right there. And then up in the mountains, there's a ranger station, and they're patrolling pretty frequently. I do carry a sidearm with me while I'm hunting, just because down here we have, cats, for what it's worth. We have mountain lions, and, there's javelina, and that's the primary reason I carry it. And,
So it's not about coyotes, and I don't mean coyotes like the wily ones.
No, I know what you're talking about. No, not really. I mean, I've heard of people who've encountered them, and I think, if you look
generally,
the other way,
they don't want to have to kill.
They don't. Yeah, they don't want to interact with anyone. Especially, I don't know about you, but like I run a Garmin Alpha 200, and if something's really going wrong, I can hit the SOS button.
There you go. So
and so
is there a monthly fee for that, or is it annual, or what's their deal there?
Yeah, I think I pay like $11 a month.
What do they call it? InLink or something?
InReach. It's great. I mean, like when I do some like serious backcountry hunting, I'll take it with me, and like I can text like my parents, like, "Hey, I'm alive." And if my parents listen to this, they'll appreciate that.
Good,
but.
You're listening to the Walden Podcast.
So, the desert, it's so high on my list, man. Last year, I was going to get down there and try to find some merns, and I was going to fly. Alaskan Airlines was going to try to take the dogs, but it was too cold in Montana, and so they wouldn't. I didn't get to go. It's high up on the list, man. Tell me about tromping around in the desert, and what kind of birds are you kicking up?
Yeah, so this will actually be my first season out here. I recently moved from the East Coast, but I think everyone's seen it on social media, right? Of course, you have the merns, just absolutely beautiful birds with, especially like the mature males with the mask and the fully fledged out wings with the polka dots. Like those are awesome, but especially for people with pointing dogs, like gambles get a bad rap because they run, but so do pheasants, right? Probably not quite as much. Like these dudes are to be in the Olympics, but yeah, I mean, just in some of the scouting that I've done, like, some really good spots so far. I mean, I know the hatch for gambles and scaled has been phenomenal so far. For listeners out there, there's a page you should follow called Jason Miller Trail Cams. Arizona passed a law a few years ago outlawing trail cams for hunters, and he was a big time hunter. So he actually quit hunting to build out this business for trail cams, but he gets amazing footage. He has a few watering holes throughout southern Arizona where he has cameras set up and just some crazy footage coming in, of bobcats, but mostly I really like the ones where it's quail. And I mean, there's huge broods of gambles, chicks, and adult birds coming up to these watering holes. So I think it should be, a phenomenal year. And I think a lot of people who are coming from out of state are ultimately coming for the merns, right? Sure. Like when people think about North Dakota, they're going there for roosters, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like that's some of the best Sharpie and hunting in the West, right? It's on par with Eastern Montana. And so, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the out-of-staters that come really are here for the merns, but I'm honestly really excited about gambles and scaled. I have a big running dog, and he's light. He's on the small. I know you have short hairs. He's on the smaller end of short hair. He weighs about 49 pounds, and I mean he can go all day. And once we get his pads toughened up with some roading later this summer, in the mountains when it cools down, I think it's gonna be exciting. I think especially when it does cool down in the valley here, right? Like today, I think right now, what is it? It's 103, but it's supposed to be 109 by the end of the day.
Yeah.
We've had some like 118 degree days where it's just brutal, right? But when it cools down here in the winter, it's in the 50s and 60s. Like it's great. It's great weather to run dogs.
Yeah.
Right?
Does it get quite a bit colder at night? I mean, it's the desert. I assume.
Oh yeah, it gets cold at night, and if you go to the mountains, like it gets chilly for sure. I know, I mean, even down south, they got like in the mountainous areas, they get snow. Like you can hunt merns in snow, which is cool. Wow. But yeah, I mean, I'm super excited for him. I mean, he's technically a puppy still. He's only a year and a half. He's got a full season of wild birds under him, and I think he's going to knock it out of the park with the quail here. But I mean, we've got a really busy fall before quail even starts here. Arizona's quail season opens. Well, I know for gambles and scaled, it opens in the middle of October. And they're still deciding on merns because I think it all depends on the hatch. But like we won't even be here until November. We're going to be on the road basically. So yeah, just super stoked.
Birds or what?
Yeah, that's the goal. So opening weekend here, or the first 2 weeks here, I think we're gonna head north either to Kaibab or Apache National Forest and try and hunt some blue grouse. I think that'd be a fun one to hunt, in the mountains. It's cooler up there. Probably can't run during like the heat of the day, but definitely early morning and evening. And then, I'm helping a buddy out with an oryx hunt in New Mexico. And then, mid-September, I'm leaving, to come north to Montana. Good. I'm fortunate to have a place to stay there, but along the way, I'm going to stop in Wyoming and hopefully get on some sage grouse.
Good for you. You got to do that.
Definitely want to do those. Yeah, I mean, they're iconic. Yeah, they're iconic birds. I mean, let alone the fact that like a rooster weighs 8 pounds or whatever it is. But,
Yeah.
It's just one of those cool things. And I think there's been a lot of cool conservation efforts, at least that I've seen this past spring. Like they've really sprung up for sage grouse, right? And sage grouse habitat. And then, I'll be in Montana for about a month or so,
Come see me.
Like I said,
there's supposed to be a planned slam. Let's get we'll try to get all three.
We're gonna link up for sure. I mean,
do it.
I think I was telling you this, a lot of people, at least a lot of out-of-staters I've seen that go to Montana and they're there for pheasants, right? There's pheasant farms for God's sake, and to me, like roosters are fun. Don't get me wrong. Like opening day is a fun thing,
that.
But I would much rather hunt sharptails and huns. There's something about specifically huns. I don't know if it's, it's almost like hunting bobwhites where, when the dog locks up and you walk in on the point and then the covey just erupts. Like that is an adrenaline rush like no other. I have friends who guide big game down in southern Arizona and, they've shot quail on, they saw one, they shot it, right? And they're like, well, what's like hunting behind a dog like? I'm like, imagine drawing your bow back on a Boone and Crockett buck 20 times in a day.
Yeah. Imagine 5 160 grossing deer walk up to the feeder at the same time.
Right. Exactly.
Like how do you even, what is the parallelism really?
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that's like huns really do it for me. They're little rockets. They're so fast. I think they taste great. So yeah, looking forward to that. And then from there, like the last week in October, I have an over-the-counter deer tag, as do some of my buddies from high school, and we're all meeting up in Idaho. Not super thrilled about the deer hunting. I think I kind of told them, I was like, we'll glass in the morning, we'll glass at night, but where we're going to be, like it's chukar and hun and valley quail country.
Yeah.
So
it's non-negotiable for me this year. I'm 100% doing chukar and I'm 100% doing Montezuma quail. Like,
yeah,
there's not a world I can't. It's happening this year. The question is where, and I really want to do Hell's Canyon. I know it's.
I want to do Hell's Canyon so bad. I would do Hell's Canyon in a heartbeat.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
I mean, I would do it.
Let's get it on the books.
Yeah, I mean, we can figure it out. Like it's something I've been like really dying to do. Like I think, and I tell people this, I like doing hard things. That's part of the reason why I won't hunt on preserves, right? One is I don't think it's like, it's not fun. I mean, it can be, right? Like if you take a big group, right, it's whatever, but like, I don't think that's actually like good dog work, right? I mean, they're planted birds. Half the time they can't fly, but hunting wild birds, especially some species, is incredibly difficult, right? And like again, I like doing hard things. So if that means walking and hiking up 2,000 vertical feet to shoot one bird out of a covey of 40, and screaming the rest of the way, and your legs feeling like they're collapsing, and your dog looking at you like you couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, like that's 100% worth it to me because it's all about the experience, right?
I've gotten the look from my dogs before.
I get it. We were at a master trial this weekend, and some of the shots I missed, like he looked at me, he's like, "Dude, are you okay?"
Yeah, I've seen that look before. I know that look.
Yeah, already. It's all about the experience for me, and like Hell's Canyon, just the image is breathtaking, right? It's unbelievable. Like, yeah, I mean that's you have what 4 species of birds up there. You got chucks, valley quail, huns, and I know there's ruffs up there.
Yeah, the huns like ratchet, rugged terrain, just like the chuck. They like high elevation. Yeah, and
that's just so appealing to me. like when I go camp and stuff, I live out of my truck. I have no issues doing that. I have a decked system in the back. I have a little cot, and
Deck,
I jump in.
Deck, this is the second time you've been called out on the Walden podcast.
Oh, decked is great. If you, I mean, honestly, anyone who drives a pickup truck, like you should have a decked system. It is a total game changer.
There we go.
You know, but yeah, I mean, like I'm totally fine roughing it. I have no issues with that. You know, is it nice to like sleep in a wall tent from time to time? Yeah, it's really nice. Is it nice to like stay in an Airbnb? Of course, it's super nice. But like, again, it comes back to the experience. Is like kind of embracing the suck, right? There's a great book that I recommend to everyone. It's called The Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter. I don't know if you've heard of it, but
part of the reason you get such a dopamine hit when the covey rises is because it's not happening all the time. You're walking
exactly
a few miles before the covey rises, and you've been lulled to sleep. It's been
exactly it's frustrating,
treacherous, and a lot of walking. And so when it does happen, that's why the adrenaline plugs by the way.
No, it honestly, like a big part of upland hunting feels like you're a whitetail hunter sometimes, except that you're walking, right? Like nothing's going on. But when you get into birds, like you're in birds and it's action packed. And so, yeah, I mean, would love to do Hell's Canyon. Let's definitely figure that out. But yeah, I'll be in Idaho.
Let's do it.
And then, you know, on the way back from Idaho, I'd love to stop in Nevada, hopefully hunt chucks there. And then, yeah, I'll be here the rest of the season, you know, good 3 or 3.5 months of quail. And I think it's going to be a blast. I mean, you know, I think for me, just, you know, being behind a bird dog is so special. I hear people, you know, like people who don't own bird dogs or, you know, they're like, oh, like I have such a special bond with my dog. And while I don't doubt that, right?
Yeah.
I think anyone who has owned a bird dog and actively hunts with them, I'm not talking about people who have short hairs or, you know, labs or pointers as house pets. I'm talking like they're house pet, but they have a job. They hunt.
Right.
You know,
right.
When you bring that puppy home, right? Like it's like a piece of clay is the metaphor I would use. And you have to mold it and work with it.
Yeah.
And you just develop such like an intimate bond with the dog and such a level of trust that most people don't see and will never understand. Right. Mm-hmm. I think there's, you know, to talk about like for chucker hunting, right? There is a level of trust between you and the dog for your dog to be 400 yards ahead of you on the face of a cliff, holding down a covey of birds waiting for you.
Yeah. And they're just as they're colleagues, really. I mean, you might be calling the shots and being the pack leader, but they're your coworkers.
Oh, absolutely.
Job, but you have a job too. You know,
he's absolutely he's absolutely my equal. And I think we ask so much of our dogs, right? You know, and they go through the ringer trying to do what they were bred to do and live for it. Like they live for that. And so, you know, the least we can do is, you know, try to be a good shot and reward them with a mouthful of feathers. But, you know, I think beyond that, like even at home, just the way I interact with my dog and everything is and I grew up with dogs and everything. It just feels so much more like intimate and special, because we've been to these places that you wouldn't go to otherwise.
I mean, you're going to beautiful places. You're going to
it's unbelievable.
Go chase birds too. It's a vacation. It's an adventure. It's all the things, really.
100%. And I mean, to kind of, you know, bridge the gap between like work and this, like this is totally my escape, right? When I'm walking behind a dog, I'm not thinking about anything else other than that dog or dogs if I'm hunting with friends and the birds and wherever I am. Like nothing else passes my mind. And that's what's so cool, because I feel like even with most other hobbies or activities or sports, like I've always like had thoughts not relating to what I'm doing pop into my head. But when I'm out hunting, like, it's like I have tunnel vision. And that's, to me, that's super special. Like, it's how I recharge. A lot of people wouldn't say walking, 12 miles while your dog is doing 30 is relaxing and recharging, but it absolutely is.
Yeah. Well, if you're sitting is the new smoking, and if you're sitting down at your computer for 10, 12, 14, 16-hour days, there is something, I mean, you get the runner's high of walking of miles and scaling a bunch of cliffs to go try to find some obscure, beautiful bird.
Totally.
Like, why not,
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think that, like, while I do love hunting with friends and, you running braces with your friends in the field and whatever, to me, like, walking with my dog is, like, out in the field is just super special, because it really is, like, it's a team effort. It's just you and them. And it can be lonely at times, especially when, like, you're not finding anything. You're kind of like, well, what are we doing out here? But again, all it takes is one covey or one find to make what felt like a terrible day like the best day ever.
Yeah, and make the whole trip for you.
Absolutely.
One 100%. Good rise can make that 20-hour drive worth it.
100%. And I mean, just like the memories that you create. And, I know some people are like, oh, you're always taking so many pictures of your dog, you're not even focusing on the hunt. I'm like, I am focused on the hunt, but ultimately at the end of the day, like, if we're lucky, we get 12, 15 years with a dog, right?
Right.
And then we have the rest of our lives. So, like, the only thing we get is memories.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take as many pictures as I can, because, like, I cherish those and I remember those moments,
Yes. And we're going to destination locations to chase the
Like,
I am taking a
just
picture of
looking
my
at
dog, but I'm also taking a picture of this beautiful mountain.
Yeah, like
scenery.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's twofold for sure. But yeah, it's just like, to me, upland hunting is just so special, and I think the upland hunting community is special too. I mean, I've met so many fantastic people because of bird dogs, right? People that I wouldn't have met if I didn't have a dog. And
right,
it's one of those things where it's like, once you're hooked, you're hooked. There's no,
and it's a club that everyone would love you to be a part of. Like, I don't know a bird dogger that it isn't super down to share that with another individual. I mean,
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what's so cool about it too, is, you meet people and they're like, yeah, like, let's go. Like, you, for example, you just reached out to me like, dude, let's go hunt this fall. I was like, absolutely.
Yeah. Let's
like, I'm coming to Montana. I'll hunt with you. You come to Arizona, you hunt with me.
I'm down.
And I think that's what's cool. And I to talk about social media, like, I think it is a double-edged sword in many, many ways, right? On the one hand, it's great. Like, we're able to connect and, like, become friends and meet up and hunt in person and, like, have lifelong memories, right? But on the other hand, like, there are people out there who post things that are distasteful for people who aren't in the hunting community, right?
Sure.
And I think even, within the hunting community, we recognize when something's distasteful. I think, like, the big thing this past spring was the guy in Wyoming who trapped that wolf and dragged it through town on his snowmobile.
Horrible.
Everyone denounced that, right? But that just adds fuel to the fire for, like, the anti-hunting movement.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's a double-edged sword. Like, we get to share these great memories with the upland hunting community, but to people who don't know what we're doing and appreciate what we're doing, it looks like we're just slaughtering birds at will.
I've said it 1,000 times. You bring anyone, I don't care what their position on hunting is. They see a dog point a bird and they see a bird fly up after, they're into it. I don't care.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's to me, every time I see my dog go on point, it's like the coolest thing I've ever seen. It's
yes.
I think most upland hunters would agree with that, Yeah, it's just,
When you see a dog point a bird, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, whether you're pro hunting or you hate hunting. Come walk behind my dog. When the dog points it and you see the bird fly away, in that moment, tell me you don't want me to take my dog to go bird hunting.
Yeah, it's just like so.
You
Okay,
can't
so my,
do it.
my
You're
parents,
like, they're born to do it. It's what they love to do.
so my parents are vegan. Okay, it's a contentious issue between us, but they respect it. They respect what I do. And like I asked my dad, like everyone's coming out here for Christmas, big family Christmas in Arizona, and I was like, you know, if I used, everyone in the hunting community will get this, but I'm sure my parents and whoever will listen to this, I'll take a blank gun with me. Will you come out and just watch Lincoln hunt? And my dad was like, yeah, absolutely. And then I had a family friend joke with me. He's like, well, what if, the blank gun gives the bird a heart attack and you accidentally kill it? And I was like, that's funny. That's a good one.
That is funny.
But, like it's just, for me, upland hunting, birds are the cherries on top, right? Like shooting a bird is the cherry on top. I get so much enjoyment out of watching a bird dog run that, yes, like shooting birds is awesome, but really at the end of the day, I'm out there for the dog.
Yeah, me too.
And I think the vast majority of people who have bird dogs will say that too. It is 100% about the dogs, and it's also a lot, to kind of counter my own point, like a lot of it is about the birds. Like I think, and I think it's a hunting community thing as well, but like hunters care more about animals and creating sustainable habitat for them and, populations than anti-hunters do.
Well, learning how to find an obscure animal in general requires intimacy. I mean, you have to learn what they like to eat, why they like to hang out in the places that they do. Like by the time you do all the research to find this one-off obscure bird that hides very well, you have a totally different appreciation for the bird than most people.
Absolutely. And I think, like humans have been hunting for thousands of years. It's a natural thing to do. But I think, part of it too is like what you were just saying, the respect that you build for those animals, right? Like let's use chukar, for example. How many animals other than mountain goats and bighorn sheep are living year round in elevations between 6,000 and 10,000 feet? Like that's pretty badass.
Right.
And we're lucky to be able to have so many different upland species in this country, and they all live in their own unique environments that have their challenges. And I think a lot of people don't recognize that. Like we care just as much about the animals.
Yeah.
And
I do.
Yeah.
For me, so much of the fun is chasing some kind of obscure bird. Like I haven't done a chukar yet. I love sage grouse. I did that last year, by the way. You got to do that one.
I'm stoked. Yeah,
because I never saw a big bomber. I want to see one of the big males. I'll probably miss, but I just want to see one of those beasts.
It's all about the experience.
Yes.
Know?
It's about chasing the cool bird for me. They're Montezuma quail, same thing. Really cool bird. I'd love to see.
Yeah. One. For me, it's honestly, it's all about chasing the point. All right, it doesn't really matter what bird, as long as it's a bird and I'm chasing the point, like
fun.
That does it for me,
Yeah, I'm here to see my dog do what it's born to do. Get it
Absolutely.
out. The other thing about training for me with the dogs is bird dogs are high energy. Like, and it's one thing to take a dog out and let them run. It's a whole nother thing when you say, hey, you want to go train? And their ears perk up. But that's mental exercise, and it's so good for the dogs. It's that's where the real camaraderie has come for me with my dogs. I can tell.
100%, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the things that you won't know unless you're involved in bird dogs or any type of working dog is that the mental stimulation is way more important than the physical exercise. Right? These dogs can run all day. We all know that. They're like Energizer bunnies. But you do 20 minutes of obedience work, they're shot after,
They love
right?
it
Because it's great. It's mental exercise, you know?
Yeah. And you desperately need it. I mean, I'm telling you right now,
Absolutely.
when I tell my female you want to go train, she gets just as excited for that as when I say you want a treat. Yeah, you know, she loves it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, like when I pull out my Wonder lead and I turn my collar on, like he's doing circles around me. And a lot of people just don't understand that. You know, they think, oh, the e-collar is cruel. Like, no, it's not. The best analogy I've heard is it's like a cell phone, right? If your cell phone's in your pocket and you're walking around doing something you're not supposed to do, your mom calls you, hey, you're not supposed to do this, right? It's the same type of thing. Like if your dog is creeping in on a bird, it's a training bird, let's say,
Right.
you use stimulation. Hey, you don't do that. And they recognize it right away, right?
Yeah.
And it's a tool. It's a tool, and I think it's absolutely essential. And
Me too.
you know, if
I for their safety too. I mean, we've all
absolutely,
of some dog getting on top of a porcupine and biting it or whatever else and having a
yeah,
wills. I want to be able to keep my dogs from getting bit by a rattlesnake or a porcupine or whatever else that's out there.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, no, I was going to bring that up earlier. Like, even just training my dog, I get so much enjoyment and fulfillment out of that because it's bonding time, right?
Yeah.
You know, you're bonding with your dog because you're both working towards a goal, right? When
Right.
they're frustrated, you're frustrated.
Right.
You know, when they're not picking up on something, you're like, what can I do to make this easier for them to understand or grasp? And
helping them work through something, a mental block or whatever it may be. You have to be a good coach, a patient coach that
totally
plays a long game with them. But when you help them through kind of a stall or a mental block,
it's so
they love
cool.
you so much more for it, really.
Totally. And it's super cool to like see a light bulb go on in their head. Like my dude, for example, he's got a supernatural desire to retrieve, but he was a puppy in his first season. So he'd rip out feathers, he'd parade around with the bird.
Sure.
And, you know, we did like a non-traditional force fetch program, you know, thanks to, you know, the kennel that we worked with. And, it wasn't, you know, your prong collar, your ear pinch, your toe pinch, whatever, but because he had that natural retrieve, the light bulb went on, and he just, because he was place trained, we started with a place board. We'd throw a bumper and he'd come back to the place board with it. And I was like, this is amazing. And, you know, he's retrieving to hand every time now. And it's just like to watch that happen is just so amazing, you know? And like, even in here, like when I bring out the training bumper just to work on his hold, he's doing like circles around me. Like he's so excited. And just to see that passion out of an animal is just amazing. You know?
So he's one.
Yeah, he's a year and a half.
Year and a half at fetching a hand. He's a good boy. He's a good boy.
He's a good boy. Yeah, no, he's doing great. Super, super excited to see how he does this year. I think, you know, he's in pretty good shape right now, and got to keep those pads tough, and hopefully, you know, it'll be a fun year.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got you've got the whole thing charted out already. Sounds like it's gonna be a real good year.
Oh, I'm stoked. I tell people this is like it's an addiction.
Yeah.
It really is, but
Sure.
like I'd much rather be addicted to this than like
going outside and getting some exercise.
Oh, right, exactly.
And hanging out with my best friend, man's best friend.
Totally. It's funny. People are like, "That's all you do." I'm like, makes me happy. I'm gonna keep doing it.
Yeah, most definitely. You know,
Yeah.
and the Covey Rise is a dopamine hit. It is addictive,
100%.
but it beats the heck out of these cell phones, though.
100%. You know, the only time I use my cell phone in the field is check Onyx.
Me too.
Or to take pictures.
Of course.
You know, other than that, like honestly, I prefer when I don't have service.
It's either figuring out where I'm at in the journey or documenting the journey.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't like. I think, but you know, with Apple, like you can set the different modes on your phone, like do not disturb and whatnot. I have one specifically for hunting where only 2 people can contact me, and that's my parents.
Fun.
You know,
Yeah.
I won't take messages, emails, or anything else when I'm out hunting.
That's the way to be. Try to do a full unplug. I try to download the offline map every time, and then I don't want service. Ideally, I'm trying to pick places where I won't have any service, and I can just focus on the task at hand, which sometimes is walking up a steep ass mountain.
Yeah, absolutely. No,
Sucking air while I'm trying to walk some rowdy patch.
More often than not, that's how it is.
Yeah.
But
oh yeah, we're gonna get our fair share of that when we do Hell's Canyon. We need to.
Oh yeah, dude. Oh yeah, we're
down.
gonna. I think it's gonna be long days for both us and the dogs. But
I've pitched it to everyone. I haven't had anyone jump on the end.
Oh, dude, I'm gonna text you right after this, and we're gonna figure it out.
Let's do it. We really should. I'm down. I'm gonna do it regardless. So I'd love for you to.
Yeah, I would love to do that, man. Hell's Canyon alone sounds a little daunting.
Yeah.
But dude,
it looks like a beat.
I'm gonna take you up on that.
Let's do it.
All the videos I've seen are just like breathtaking.
Yes, it looks like it's its own thing, really.
Yeah, it is. It's like
its own adventure.
Yeah, like a different planet almost.
Yeah,
but
so what we do this for, the adventure, really.
Absolutely. Yep, chasing the point and the adventure.
Let's do it, man. Cool. I'm so glad that you came on. I had a great time. We covered a lot of intriguing topics. I'd love to have you back on. Thank you for taking the time. Thanks for sitting down with me today. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope the listeners do too.
Of course, man. Really appreciate you having me on, and I'm gonna text you right after this. We're gonna figure out Hell's Canyon.
I'm down. Let's do it.